The United States has been a country for over 241 years. It has been a superpower since roughly 1945, basically after we came out of World War II, relatively unscathed as compared to the European countries. So we've been a superpower for less than 80 years. We've been the lone superpower since less than 25 years or so. I think the USSR was broken up in late 80s, early 90s, somewhere along in there. And Russia has been a shell of its former self ever since. China is, striving to be what we are now. That being said, we haven't been the world superpower or a superpower for that long. If you look at ancient Egypt, ruled for a long time. Ancient Rome, ruled for a long time. Greece, ruled for a long time. We haven't, which in my mind says that we got a long way to go before we cease being a superpower. But we can screw things up. And one of the ways that we can screw things up is getting into unnecessary wars, or wars where the outcome essentially is not to win something winnable. Case in point, the first war we got into was to get our independence, the Revolutionary War, right? We fought the British so that we can gain independence. It was a clear goal, and we knew when we reached that goal that it was achieved. Then you had the War 1812 thrown in there somewhere. The Civil War, again, a fight amongst ourselves, but it was over a clear ideological goal. That once one side won that goal, we knew that the war was over. When we got into World War I, we didn't originally want to do that. Clear goals in mind. Again, Germany at the forefront, clear objective in place. Obviously, help Europe win that war. Then you have World War II. Again, didn't want to get into it. Japan drew us into that war by attacking us. We came into the war on the side of the Allies, and we knew exactly what needed to be done to defeat the Axis power headlined by Hitler in Germany. We knew what the objective was. We knew when that objective was reached. Then you get into the two wars that did not have a clear goal in mind, something that was winnable. We jumped into the Korean War because we wanted to prevent the spread of communism. So we came in on the side of South Korea, Russia, China on the side of North Korea, and we wanted to stem the tide of communism. So we committed money. We were over 88% of the NATO coalition that fought in the Korean War. No clear objective. You stem the tide of communism. What exactly is that? All right. Get out of that war, and they deem it a tie, but it was just really colossally a waste of time on our part, as was the Vietnam War. Again, with this vague objective to stem the tide of communism. We lose that war basically because we didn't have a clear objective. What constitutes victory in a war like that? Fast forward to Iraq. The first Iraq war, there's a clear objective. Drive Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. Once that's done, war is over. That was the objective. Marching on Baghdad, That wasn't objective. That's, unless you're going to take that country over and put it as part of, make it the 51st state, then that's just a waste of time. Driving Saddam out of Kuwait, that's an objective. Get it done, move on. Then you come to 2001. We are attacked by terrorists who trained in Saudi Arabia. And as a result of that, President Bush decides to invade Afghanistan to fight terrorism. That's not a winnable war. That's why we're still there. We were attacked by terrorists. And despite what people want to believe, 9/11 was a large criminal act. I mean, it was. You don't want to think about it like crime, but terrorism is extreme crime. It really is. And just like you cannot root out crime, you are not going to forever root out terrorism. There's always going to be someone who chooses that method as their means to express themselves, so to speak. So fighting a war in Afghanistan and then subsequently fighting a war in Iraq in an effort to defeat terrorism is a colossal waste of time and resources and valuable American lives. Those are not wars that can be won. The only way you win a war in Afghanistan and you win a war in Iraq is if you're planning on making Afghanistan and Iraq U.S. territories. And you are expanding out the U.S. empire. Otherwise, you're not going to win that war because it can't be won. Those are police actions to combat terrorism. And when you have terrorism, which is an extreme act of crime, you have to battle and investigate those crimes and punish the wrongdoers when they happen. You're just not going to prevent them wholeheartedly. You want to put deterrence in place and hope that you can deter as many would-be terrorists as possible, but you're not going to forever eliminate terrorism, no matter how horrific they are. And no president wants to be the one to tell that to the American people. It's just basic common sense. When President Obama tried to pull out troops and did pull out troops, the vacuum was filled by other people. That's the realization. So everybody wants to blame President Obama for the rise of ISIS. It's ludicrous. Whenever we leave, it's going to be somebody that comes in to fill that void, unless you keep a police state there forever. Now, when someone comes in and fill that void, does that mean they're going to automatically commit an act of terrorism? Maybe they will, at which time we will attack them if they have attacked us. So ISIS taking over Iraq, or ISIS taking over Afghanistan, or the Taliban, or Al-Qaeda, it's far easier for them to take over that country and become that country so that when they do something, we can attack said country and proceed accordingly. That's what's going to happen. But to be in this perpetual state of staying in a region to prevent something that may or may not happen because we're afraid to close our eyes, or afraid to turn our back, afraid to be the person in charge when that happens, that's how we ultimately start our demise. I mean, it's quite simple. Now you're looking at North Korea and the latest, greatest threat. We can't have North Korea get a nuclear bomb. So what's the alternative? I've heard, President Clinton was asleep at the wheel. President Bush was asleep at the wheel. President Obama was asleep at the wheel. Now North Korea has a bomb. So let's dial back to President Clinton. All right? What could he have done to keep North Korea from getting a bomb? Besides saying pretty please, begging them, slapping sanctions on them. Nothing outside going to war. So are you going to go to war? Now you're going to draw back in China. You're going to draw back in Russia. And essentially, it's going to be the Korean War of 1950s all over again. Loss of men and resources. They elected not to do that. President Obama elected not to do that. And ultimately, for all the talk, I know I heard some of the people on the right and Trump supporters say, President Trump talked tough, and that's what we need. Okay, you just talk tough. Let's see if that stops him from getting a nuclear bomb. It won't. Because outside, again, going to war with them, you're not going to stop them. Not tough talk, not so-called appeasement. Sanctions could eventually work. You can starve them out, because then all they have is let's say they get this nuclear bomb, as intelligence says that they have. Okay, you got one. Now what? Can't feed your country. You fire off that one nuclear bomb. Now what? So them getting a nuclear bomb shouldn't be why we commit men, resources to a war. We fought those types of wars where there's no clear result. You can't defeat communism. You can't defeat terrorism. Those things are going to happen. What you do is you make yourself stronger. Now, if you want to defeat them, there's one way to do it. You fight those countries, you invade them, and then you annex them. They become part of the U.S. empire. If you're not willing to do that, then this other stuff is just a waste, again, of time, men, and resources. And as soon as our leaders, our political leaders, are real with themselves about that and real with the American people about that, then we'll continue to see this erosion of our freedoms or our ability as being a country, being a superpower. We'll see that slow decline. If we stop these silly fights, if our political leaders stop trying to scare Americans into thinking that these fights are important, then we can continue on and get our 1,000 years of rule. Because I'm a firm believer, over just a little under 80 years of being a superpower, under 30 years of being the lone superpower, we got a long way to go. My children and my children's children and their children to see the United States of America being a superpower, but not fighting these crazy wars, not staying over there in Afghanistan or Iraq and committing time, men, and resources to fight terrorism, which is an extreme criminal act, not trying to fight or stem the tide of communism. You know how you stem the tide of communism? You make your country the most powerful country in the world, and you keep it that way. And you become the symbol of what democracy is. That's how you do it. You want to stop Sung or Hung or Hoon or whoever your Hong Kong little short fat guy with the funny haircut. If you want to stop him from getting a nuclear arsenal, you starve him to death. You keep the sanctions on him, and you ignore his little ass. And if he gets one, what he's going to do with one nuclear bomb? If he gets two, what he's going to do with two? Because as soon as he fire one or the other, we blow his little behind up off the planet. Until such time, we're going about our business. We are a superpower. North Korea is not. I'm C. Edward, and that's my take.